Good morning, everybody. It is wonderful to see you all, and thank you for coming in such a great number. The short video that you have seen actually indicates already the difference between East and West, how we teach Buddhism, because you saw a very unusual Sangyangshik or beam raising ceremony. Many of you must have been participating in similar ceremonies, and you know that by the time the last beam is put into place, the wooden structure is ready. Not with us. What you saw was a spiritual beginning. 8 years ago we did the same for the Zen room, and 4 years ago we opened it. This time we did it for the great Buddha hall, and I believe maybe in 4 years we can open it. Buddhism has great values because we can adapt to the culture where we take the teaching. So if we really want to convey the Buddha's message, first we need to grasp the essence, which is not dependent on culture. And for that we need a good teacher or many good teachers. Because when we begin, many times we identify the teaching with the culture that surrounds it, or the books, the texts that convey it, or the people that tell us about it. But as you recite the Heart Sutra, you already understand that the essence of the teaching is not something that the eyes could see, the ears could hear, your hands could touch. So once we grasp this essence, then we can take this to any culture and adapt the teaching to help that country, that culture, that continent wake up. And in that sense, I'm very, very grateful for my late teacher, Zen Master Seung Sahn, because he did just that. He gave us a perfect starting point, and I emphasize starting point, because he never meant that his work is finished. We are the continuation. Not just Westerners, but also Koreans. I have to emphasize. So, when I went back to the West 14 years ago, I was almost as foreign as any one of you visiting there. Not only because I spent 7 years away, but the 6 years of intensive training really changes you. It changes anyone. And that change is what we count with. That change is what we can believe in, because if that training doesn't change you, then why did you do it? So I had to relearn pretty much everything to deliver the new baggage home. And I realized that most of the forms that I learned in Korea, except the meditation and the chanting, I cannot use them directly in Hungary. I have to put them all down, I have to put them to rest. And then, if I listen to people, if I hear them out, if I become one with their minds, if I understand their problems and their happiness, their questions, then I may be able to answer that. When you go to hospital, then usually the doctor asks you a few questions. Where does it hurt? What did you experience in your head, in your body? What are the symptoms? And from the symptoms, we can very quickly get to the diagnosis, what the actual problem is. And many times when you meet religions, that doesn't behave in the same way. Religions have dogmas or preset orthodox views or teachings that you must learn because that is our teaching. And if you begin like that, then many people will feel remote or a little bit alienated because they didn't have a chance to ask questions. You didn't listen to them first, but you wanted them to learn the Buddha's teaching. And by itself, it's not a bad thing, but it's not the right thing to start with. So first let them come to you, and then listen to them, why they came. And then address their questions. And then they will be interested not just in the answer, but also where that answer came from. And then you can teach them. So we are rightfully proud of 1700 years of Korean Buddhist history. But if you go to the West, you must leave that history here in Korea. We have beautiful forms, kasa, changsam, bowing, wonderful tea. I'm looking at it and my heart is filled with joy. This is so neat, you know, and so elegant. But if you rely on that in the West, it's not going to work. Zen, or our Sonbulgyo, has 4 very important principles deriving from China. The first, do not depend on the scriptures. Now that's very hard to believe, but you really should not depend on the scriptures when you try to teach Westerners or anybody new to Buddhism. If you just start to quote the sutras, if you directly jump to the 4 Noble Truths, or the Noble Eightfold Path, or the 6 Paramitas, it goes above their head, and it doesn't go into their hearts. So that's why do not depend on the scriptures. So then what can you do? Comes the second principle, directly pointing to human mind. So this directly pointing to human mind really delivers the same kind of approach as the good doctor in a good hospital. You're interested in Zen. What is it that makes you interested? If you have a problem, what is that? If you have suffering, where does that come from? If you trust me, then how may I help you? Without this basic trust, nothing works. Then the form remains outside of the person. Then the form does not gain its original function because it did not enter the mind of the student. So the third principle is also very important. It clarifies our direction. Attaining awakening by experiencing our true nature. Just like the definition of God in the West has 1,000 and 10,000 forms, the definition of enlightenment in the Orient has also 10,000 definitions. And clarifying that attaining our true nature is awakening is a very clear, calm, and solid point. Nothing else is necessary. Only that. And out of that one point comes everything else. Why do we need to clarify this? In the West, there are many expectations from anything coming from the Orient. So people expect that they become magicians if they learn Buddhism, they will live forever, they will be super successful, and other expectations that come just out of ignorant views. If you judge them because of this ignorance, you cannot teach them. Many times they are like children playing with their toys in the burning house. But if you say that you are like a child playing with the toy in the burning house, they will never listen to you. So you have to start where they are at. And you have to have courage to make a mistake, which you correct later. Because if you want to be perfect from step 1, you cannot connect. So you have to start where they are at and slowly, slowly bring their understanding and experience to the ultimate, to our true nature. And gently correct the mistakes that they are likely to make because of their karma. So this karma largely includes what we call collectively spiritual materialism. And that spiritual materialism is not good, not bad, but it's not our purpose. It's not our direction. That's not what we want to attain. That's why the third principle of Zen rightfully and clearly defines it: attain enlightenment by experiencing our true nature, in Korean Bulsong, or Buddha nature. Okay? And the fourth is transmission from mind to mind. That mind-to-mind transmission does not depend on ceremonies, special requirements, special forms. It depends on one thing. Did you wake up to the true mind of your teacher? Have you really perceived the Buddha in your teacher? And then in all beings, because then you are ripe. When the Buddha attained awakening, he saw everybody is enlightened, they just don't know it. And when that experience is truly yours, you can see the potential in every sentient being to be Buddha. That's very important. And that takes courage, trust, and most importantly, a non-judgmental mind. If you start to judge, you turn the Buddha into the sentient being. If you stop judging, you allow a sentient being to become Buddha. It's very important. So, spiritual beginning. The West wants the essence first. And they wouldn't mind if the essence was just there without a form. But you all know that it's impossible to drink this tea without the cup or this teapot. We have to have some form for this essence, like we need a body for this mind if we want to live. But the West wants the essence intellectually, analytically, and sometimes with a very, very practical and cold approach. And when they realize that it doesn't work, no matter how much they think they will never attain our true nature, then they can relax a little bit, then they can understand something more beyond thinking. Like many people in the world, Westerners learn very well from stories. And kongans are very good stories. I feel fortunate that Seung Sahn Sunim is my original teacher. And that will never be in the past, although his body may be gone. And he always had direct question and answer, and always said very good stories and metaphors. He was simple and clear and talked to the heart of all of us. So when it comes to kongans, in Korea it's really touching like the sacred cow of India. If you go to Zen centers or meditation halls, you don't find Sonbun Tap so often. You can have it, but you have to have really kind of many, many years or advanced seniority in the monk's realm to even approach the Zen master. And the Sonbun Tap was something, this Dharma combat, we're actively working with the kongans in the interview room, which Seung Sahn Sunim taught us. And that's the treasure that I carry in my heart, and of course not just me, all of his true students do that. Westerners are very interested in this. Why? They are very smart. They can learn anything from books. So they are interested in what they cannot learn, but they already have. They just cannot see it yet. And kongans are excellent training for that intuition. And that intuition is not just a psychological term or something from your history or education. It's something we carry all the time. The seed for that is our non-dualistic wisdom. Intuition. It's like the mystery of the West. People went to very, very big depths in Gnosticism, alchemy, secret lores, later in the Middle Ages, Christian mystics, then some areas of science to find something deep and mystical. And kongans make that point very clear. We can clear off all the debris, all the unnecessary things. So Joju said, when they asked him, does a dog have Buddha nature? Moo. Why? And the mind stops. Cannot think anymore. And yes, what is the meaning of moo? And it's like hitting a rock wall. And this is still a very simple kongan. So we have this active and interactive teaching, which Seung Sahn Sunim gave us. And he made such an elaborate system that we can educate people like first grade, second grade, third grade, up to 10 and beyond. Okay? And this, in the West, is essential. They need to have gradations. They need to have some marks of progress. And that's real progress, not just some form after form after form. When they meditate and they cannot solve the kongans, they realize how much their own habits control them, how much their own karma inhibits them, and they become more humble. Arrogance is not relevant just to one or another civilization. We all have this mind, I know better, I'm smarter, I'm faster, I'm more efficient. I. Kongan practice breaks this I, completely takes it away. Because if you don't know, your self-image soon changes or crumbles or completely disappears, depending on the depth of your don't know. And this don't know mind is our treasure. This don't know is the source of our intuition. But the West still couldn't connect it so well before the advent of Sonbulgyo or Zen Buddhism to the West. Now we have a very practical way to meditate, a good technique like the cup. But we have the essence of Buddhism, this teaching of no name, no form, no life, no death, no thinking, no I. That's the essence. And this essence can gain many functions. And this kind of function is manifesting and become totally obvious in the interview room first, then in your everyday life next. Because it doesn't stop in the interview room. It goes over to everyday life. So if you solve the big kongan inside, then you can solve your problems outside. They don't have to be similar. But you get the tool to use it in the interview room, and you use that tool outside in everyday life. I give you an example. We have this very simple kongan. What is the Buddha nature of this telephone? Everybody knows it. What is the Buddha nature of this cup? Everybody knows it. But when you ask, this telephone and this cup, are they the same or are they different? Many people freeze. So this is also basic training. And once you get that, you learn how to distinguish without discrimination. How to tell white from black, but not saying that black is bad and white is good. This is a very subtle distinction, and in our minds, many times it totally goes together. Distinction and discrimination. Talking about good and bad, and actually distinguishing qualities. It's fused together in our seventh consciousness, or Chilshik. That's one of our big problems. Why does it go so deep? Because your Chilshik, your seventh consciousness, is where you make your self-image, your I, your ego. And that's what we work with every day. That's the habit that we reinforce every single moment that we use this concept of ego. So Westerners sometimes are like children. They like to toy around with these questions and they have a lot of thinking about it. And the teacher must be extremely patient. And that patience pays off. Why? Because when they have their real problems, they come to you. Because you were more patient than their parents, friends, or other teachers. This is really important. This pali pali, it doesn't work. Pali hapura, doesn't work. 천천히, 부드럽게, 자세히, 완벽하게. So slowly, softly, and then it becomes perfect, without the notion of perfection. Okay? So to sum it up, first, hear them out, listen to their questions, don't use the forms, connect to the mind. Then train the mind with the right tools, the right method. And this method is twofold. One is external, the meditation forms, how we practice chanting, sitting, walking, eating, etc. And the other is internal. That's the interview. With the kongans, you train the mind. And next step is a mind which has changed, has woken up to a certain degree, to a certain extent, and walks out of the temple with more clarity, more compassion, more wisdom, and lives a slightly different life outwardly, but a very different life inwards. That's very important. We don't want to change people's lives. We don't go over with the message, Buddha loves you. Nobody does that. We don't give people books in the streets. We don't want to make them Buddhists, because this teaching is very high class. And high class teaching does not act like this. You respect people's freedom, you respect people's ability to wake up, and we have to live with the fact that most people haven't suffered enough to go deep in their minds and want to attain awakening. We have to be patient, but at the same time we have to be ready and rather work on the internal qualities than wanting some external achievement. It's not easy. So when we build this temple that you have seen, we don't build just a building or a set of buildings out of wood and clay and roof tiles. We build a temple inside. And that manifests on the outside. So if you have that kind of mind, when you build your inside temple, the outside temple appears naturally. Whatever lifestyle you have. So I think this is plenty for introductory, and I would like to welcome your questions.
Yeah. My question is, I don't mean to be nitpicking about some of the words of your statement out of context. The thing is, as you said, as the degree or grade of your enlightenment goes up, the notion of I disappears, right?
It depends why you ask this question. It's not right or wrong yet, but I want to hear the mind that asked this question. So talk to me.
Yeah. Okay. The thing is, I'm wondering if that is possible from a layperson's point of view. Second thing is that really or desirable? And that notion conflicts with I heard this kind of expression that in the world above and in the world below, you are the only one that exists, or you are the center of the universe.
Careful. The third sentence, this last one, has a trap. Okay? Quick answers. Of course, it's possible for lay people. No distinction. Whether you have outside hair or not, that's not the issue. Do you have inside hair? Do you have ignorance hair? That's what matters. So it's perfectly attainable. And concerning the sentence, on this earth and below the sky only I am holy, is a mistranslation. How could he possibly advertise the self? How could he possibly do that? To raise a question like yours. It's not the first time I've heard this. But this I has to be understood correctly. That's your true nature, which is actually no I. But if he said that, nobody would understand. We say, only our true nature is worthy. Only our true self is worthy. Well, that's how the I got mistranslated into a person, a personal I. Same thing in the Bible. I am the way, the truth, and life. Can anyone believe that it's somebody's ego, even Jesus' ego? Ridiculous. Or the Buddha's ego when he actually stepped, 7 steps and all these lotuses opened. We know when a toddler, acts, it's not like that, Giggles, saliva, eats, poops, sleeps, that's normal. But we want myths. We want to elevate, okay? so that we could have something higher or someone noble we can trust and follow. That's how myths are born. So in it, there are traps and there are pitfalls exactly to avoid. So only I am holy. You see, it's impossible that it's somebody's ego. So only our true nature is worthy. And then it's clean. Okay?
Thank you, Sunim. I have a question about how to apply the teachings of the Buddha and the teachings of Zen Buddhism into an organization. I'm an executive coach, meaning I coach executives of global companies, and I'm really interested in doing meditation myself to attain alignment and at the same time support people to find their true self, especially within the mind of the executives in our organization. So is there, especially in the Western world, because I am really thankful to the Buddha and the teachings, so I want to make a contribution. So that's my question. Thank you.
Well, Sunim, you are in a wonderful position as a Buddhist executive coach to help people. And first of all, especially in the West, we have to correct basic notions and basic views on the self, on the group, and on time and space and cause and effect. I start with the general and I'll go for the particular. One general notion in the West, but increasingly in Korea, because company culture doesn't follow Buddhism here either, that we have a linear process from extraction, production, marketing, sales, and then disposition. They think it's linear. It's wrong. Because what you dispose of becomes the raw material for the next extraction. I'm deliberately using economic concepts here because that's the environment where you are. So first and foremost, people have to wake up for the objective processes that surround them, and what they generate is not a linear thing, it's cyclical. So bad products come back to the manufacturer. Good products bring up quality and more customers. And that's how we should start. When the Buddha started his teaching, he wanted to start with the Avatamsaka Sutra. And the central teaching of that, if you want to understand this world, the universe, then perceive it as created by mind alone. Now, if you want to start in a company, that the company spirit or the company culture creates the market, they will never believe you. It's too hard. So the Buddha went back to the Four Noble Truths, to the Sasongje, and he says, there is suffering, cause of suffering, end of suffering, and way of ending suffering. So you have to get back to the objective part, the material part of the company's output, even if they are in kind of services, so not so much material. So first, look at cause and effect, because we have to agree within the company that we have some problems. How we fix that is our business, and your business is to advise that at the highest level. But if you want to talk to the CEO and the CFO and everybody in the board that you guys create the company spirit. The company spirit creates the mind that produces the products, and that kind of affects the market. They will not listen to you right away. Maybe it goes in, but it also goes out. So, first, what's the product? How does it work? What is the product cycle? And when you establish that, then see it from a generative point of view. What is it that generates the product cycle? Who makes it? Who markets it? Who ships it? Who makes the decisions? All over it. Then you get to the organigram. And then already there can be some adjustments, and we haven't even talked about meditation. In a company, there can be two kinds of mistakes, not just in a company, in a school, in a temple, in any society. Either it's too vertical or it's too horizontal. Too horizontal means that the departments, they make decisions by themselves and they do not integrate, for instance. Or individuals, they have their own line of work, but they do not readily cooperate with the others, In its extreme, we call this compartmentalization. That means everybody's in their little cubicle because everybody's equal. And they report to one boss and that's it. That report is not so significant. The other is that everything is vertical. Everybody reports higher and higher and higher and higher, and then the structure is very tight. Many people are afraid of making mistakes. They don't really communicate with anyone else than just higher up, and they are not creative, they're not critical, they are trustworthy based on obedience. So, what can we possibly do to help this? Balance, optimum, and middle way. These three things. So find the balance between human beings. This results in optimum performance, creativity and trustworthiness at the same time, vertical and horizontal integration at the same time. And the middle way means that at that time the company neither earns too much profit nor loses. Neither has one significantly big boom year and then a bust for about 2-3 years. Neither hires too many people nor loses too many people. So it's like a natural life within nature. So the next step is actually taking a trip. There are these team building trips. But these team building trips, many times, they are spent talking, listening to their iPhones or Android devices and whatever, and they don't really communicate with the environment or with themselves. So the most important thing for these highly driven executives and department heads is that you would take them to nature and they would shut up and start to observe and pay attention. Because usually every day the opposite happens. They are not in nature, they are in the company building, and they are only talking. So do the opposite. Take them to nature, get them to shut up, and sit in some kind of observing or attentive position, maybe meditation. But they can also walk. And make them describe what they observed. That cleans their minds of all the junk. And that observation, they can even log later. What they heard, what they felt, what they thought. This is not therapy, this is meditation, it's different. And then you can have individual interviews with certain executive positions, department heads, vice president, president, CFO, CEO, whoever you need to adjust something. And that adjustment goes with balance, optimum, and middle way. Okay? And then, it's not over, then you have to make this automatic. That's the most difficult part, because you cannot manual control the whole company all the time. So you have to have a certain, I would say, accepted medium of thinking, something that people agree with. And that's the basis of company culture. So that's the way we behave with each other. That's the way we behave with the customers. That's the accepted quality that we produce. What's the biggest problem here? For instance, the employees are taught to produce quality products, but the boss tells them that these products have to become obsolete in 2 years. It's planned obsolescence. So they have to decrease the quality. And there is disagreement. And then the employee says, I'm not going to produce this junk. But the boss says, we have to have more customers. How? What is the way of getting more customers? Is it producing inferior products? Or producing such high quality that everyone else who cannot get it will come to the company? So it's a very different philosophy in each case. How the product cycle works, what's the length of this cycle, what and who we want to involve in this cycle. Do we want to have a company-wide agreement on policies and standards, or we allow multiple standards and kind of disparate policies? These all have very, very long-term effects to the health of that community, because whatever we term it or call it, a company is a community. It's a bunch of people coming together to produce products and get some profit out of it. That's capitalism. And there's a special animal here, the finance sector, where money is the product and the raw material at the same time. Now that's when you have to be super careful. And since it's mostly software plus a bunch of banks and insurance companies and others involved, it's much harder to detect if there's a mistake. If they make this thing in the wrong way, if I want to make a call or check my mail, it doesn't work. But it's very hard to detect human errors in the regulations and the operation of the finance sector. And the best example is 2008, September 27th, when the whole thing crashed. And it crashed so bad that it was worse than the 1929-33 crisis. If Wall Street and the city and the Western world had a different company culture in the financial sector, they would have had a different approach to the whole operation of this product cycle, where money is the raw material, financial processes, a little bit of math, derivatives, and other transactions in the stock exchange, and then money is the product. So that's very elusive and very abstract. And when there's a problem, the real world suffers. Not just their world, everyone else suffers. So to train that mind, to bring that to the middle way, to have balance there, that's an immensely difficult thing, because they would have to listen. And the only way is to go back to the past and make them realize that you guys are following the same patterns as before. If you don't change your mind, you will recreate the crisis. And that's exactly what we're going to have. Because the regulations inside and the regulations outside did not undergo a structural and significant change. And you bet that within a few years, it's going to come crashing down like Virgin 2. So this was really, really good question on your side. You have a big job to do. Okay? Thank you.
I heard that Seung Sahn Sunim is your original teacher.
Yeah.
I heard that you and Seung Sahn Sunim has a lot of some kinds of samunda.
Well,
yeah.
not just directly with him, but his senior students as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I just curious about what is your impressive samunda?
The biggest impression is that in the interview room, you really connect with the other person, whether you are a teacher or student. So that's true mind-to-mind and heart-to-heart connection. And that is not based on emotions, not based on thinking. It's based on something much deeper. So if you really keep the mind, which is clear like space, clear like a mirror, no thinking, no feelings, no past, no present, no future, this sounds very odd or foreign or sometimes a little bit weird. But that's the key. And then you can connect. Then you are totally in sync. And then, of course, you can get the kongan answer sooner or later, but the answer is not the point. The way that you have to cover to get the answer, that's the point. So if you have a helicopter and the helicopter drops you on Mount Everest, did you do anything? Yeah, you hired the helicopter. But if you take the time to learn mountain climbing, go to Nepal, go to the base camp, then camp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then go up to the peak and come down alive, then you have accomplished something. So this kind of don't know is more important than any kongan answer. If the answers by themselves would be helpful, we would teach them in a book, in a video. But the reason why you have to get these and why you have to strive and why you have to fight for it, sometimes conquering yourself, is the reason why I'm still here. I didn't understand, but I felt the depth, that there's something really to fathom which I don't understand, but I really want that to become familiar, to become mine somehow. That I wouldn't look like an idiot when I ask this kongan from myself, and I know that I don't know. It's really the beginning. So this thing got me in. And Seung Sahn Sunim's teaching, with its compassion and power and wisdom, all the three together, made this Dharma combat in any environment with any of his senior students a very wonderful experience. Because if it's right, there is no self in the room, neither from the teacher nor from the student. And that is a wonderful experience. And then you truly attain correct situation, correct relationship, and correct function. You know? And when that happens, something really new opens up. And personally, I believe that as we are now, as you could see from our affiliation, that we belong to Sudoksa, we are following traditional Korean form with all the Yebulmon, the Chonsukyong, the Kido, the Jinan, Nungom, Judebiju. We all do that. That's traditional Korean form, not a westernized form. But that original Korean form shelters and carries Seung Sahn Sunim's magnificent, fresh, and new teaching. There is nobody else in Korean Buddhism who would have taught like him. And no disrespect to any Kun Sunims or Son Sunims. I really feel integrated and home in the current, family, monks family where I belong. Doing Ango or Kyolche at Jonkesa is a true privilege. Notwithstanding that Seung Sahn Sunim gave me the essence and the reason why I'm practicing this tradition. The two together, not just for me, but all the Bongeunsa family and everybody in the West, and hopefully here too, who gets to know this combination, Seung Sahn Sunim's teaching with original Korean form. And for me, that's a winner. You have to give up a lot for that. Your expectations, your ideas. And that's why we call this practice, not just the kongan practice, but generally Sonbulgyo or Korean Son, mind fasting, the fasting of the mind. So it's very easy to fast your body, just drink orange juice for a week and you have done it. I don't want to mitigate that. Fasting is important for the body too. But mind fasting, how much do you refrain from thinking that is so sweet? You are drunk from your own thoughts, or you are elevated by your own emotions. And you generate yourself, your notion of your own ego, 24 frames a second, that is continuous. So how do we refrain from that? So this mind fasting is more important than anything. And once you have done that, once you have grasped the essence, then we can dress it up. Then we can build the culture around it. Then we can build society around it. We can take it to a company. We can take it to a classroom. We can take it anywhere where people are interested genuinely. So that's how far Dharma combat or kongan practice goes.
My question is, everyone says love, about love.
Mm-hmm.
I love someone, I love my friends, my family. And even North Korea, the Kim Jong-un,
Mm-hmm.
he says, maybe I love his girlfriend, like that. But individually, everyone is a lover. But why the world is just so miserable?
Because people say love, but they don't have true love. That's why. It's like you call a customer service and so, how may I help you? Meaning, how can I take your money? So I love you, but that means how can I satisfy my desire? Different. So true love has no self. True love is truly and absolutely for the mutual happiness and benefit for all beings. I mean, you go to the DMZ, to Pamunjom, and you see this huge mountainside with like a human desert around, only concrete, and nothing in it. And there is this big letters, Chal Salgo He Ora, come here and live well. Excuse me? Did we lose our own eyes and ears? So, a great Hungarian philosopher, Béla Honvas, who was my first teacher, not personally, I just read his works. He said there are two kinds of dead men. One where the body and the mind became permanently separated. And the other dead is when you do not know the true meaning of the words. So we must attain the true meaning of love and compassion and wisdom. And if you just use your thinking and use your feelings, your I, my, me will always interfere. Yeah, we love our family, but what do we do with each other in the family home? What kind of speech? What kind of action? Reflect on that. Thanks for your question. More questions?
In Buddha times, the once unbelievable thing happened, special transmission. The Buddha's feet appears through the coffin. We say Pakusangshi. Can you believe it? Or is physically a physical point of view, a medical point of view, is unbelievable thing. Can you explain it to us?
Oh, absolutely. First of all, I have to point out how lucky we are. Because we are here 2,500 and some years after the Buddha. We were not there. So we don't know. Not just this is the unbelievable part of the Buddha's life. The special transmission actually happened first when he lifted the flower. So all of you know the story. He was on Vulture Peak and he didn't talk, but people expected a Dharma speech. So then he lifts a flower and Mahakashyapa smiles. Then Buddha says, I give my true Dharma to you. If you ask Theravada people, they will smile and they say, maybe this happened, maybe not. Mahayana, especially Sombogyo, they say, yes, of course, that's our transmission. Is it important? Who believes what about the past? Next, Mahakashyapa was coming. He was just a young monk, old man, but young monk. The Buddha just moves to the side and has him sit right next to him. We talked about vertical and horizontal. That's when the Buddha totally went democratic. He elevated somebody, obviously, to his position. And then everybody just shut up and didn't say anything. That's not really human. People talk, people whisper. We don't know what they whispered, but Mahakashyapa became patriarch. It's not easy. Look at Hui Neng, the sixth patriarch. He almost died. So there are all these miracles and controversies and human paradoxes. And the good thing is that you do not have to be right or wrong about it. You can leave it as a question. Did it happen like this? I mean, the best is Bodhidharma, Dharma Desa. You know, they tried to poison him quite a few times. That's why his neck became blue. So after a while, he said, okay, let them poison me, just don't burn my body. Put it into stone coffin, okay? So they said, oh, teacher, we are sorry, you go. Don't worry about it, just let them do it. So they poison him, he dies, put it into stone coffin. You know the story, right? But next comes the interesting part, that imperial courier comes back to China from India. And then he meets Bodhidharma, walking with a stick and one sandal. Now you have many pictures of Bodhidharma with one sandal. And nobody said, was he going to the wrong shoe store? They had only one of the right size. So what happened? So then, the courier says, oh, master, please give me a memory, some kind of a souvenir, okay, of our wonderful meeting. So Bodhidharma writes a calligraphy, goes to India, courier goes back to the capital, and then says, I met Bodhidharma. Are you crazy? Bodhidharma's been dead almost 1 year. So then they said, no, this is his calligraphy. They run to the archives, compare, really, Bodhidharma's brush script. So they immediately went to the stone coffin, opened it up, and found just emptiness, except one sandal. One sandal was in it. Now we know that yogis have special powers. or Siddhas have special powers. Some Taoist magicians, even some Sonbulgyo, if they practice long time, some side effects can appear, so they have special powers. Even if they exist, we do not practice for these special powers. It doesn't touch you. It doesn't really touch your problems. So last story for your answer, Huang-po or Huang-po, okay? He was migrating in the mountains, and he was alone, and he found a very bright-eyed monk, and he says, okay, we can walk together. So they started to go in the mountains together. And suddenly they found a small mountain river. It was wide and deep and very fast. This young monk just lifted a little bit, slightly, the edge of his robes, and he walked on the water to the other shore. And he looks back and says, Zen Master, why not come? Why not come? Then Huang-po says, you only cared for your own abilities, your own powers. If I had known this before, I would have broken your leg. So this tells you something important. When I first heard this over 20 years ago, it really bothered me. What's wrong with magic? What's wrong with the special effects? There's nothing wrong, but we can lose focus. And that's why in the West, miracles are misinterpreted and misunderstood more than they would be understood in the right context and interpreted in the right way. How do we know this? If miracles create more anger and desire and ignorance, we use them in the wrong way. If these miracles create less anger, less desire, less ignorance, we use them in the right way. Then more wisdom, more compassion, more selfless strength can appear. So that's why whether these things appeared or disappeared, existed, not existed, it's not our problem. It's historians' problem, not ours. And if we get lost in the past, then remind ourselves of the Diamond Sutra, which says, the mind which is separated into past, present, and future cannot get enlightenment. So return to this moment, then stop being torn apart by past, present, and future, and you will realize that past, present, and future only exist at this moment. No other place, no other time. If you have this mind, then miracles are no problem. When you have thinking, you cannot hear. When you can hear 100%, you have no thinking. So that's how mind appears and mind disappears. And when you have meditation, you can experience that, but also in everyday life. When your thoughts, feelings, perceptions, impulses, and consciousness, the 5 skandhas, in Korean, O-on, when they have content, you have a notion of self, that I exist. When these completely become empty, then you have no notion of self or ego. But that doesn't change your true nature at all. Just like the sky doesn't change whether it has clouds or not. Okay? So, I give you practical advice because so far you only heard Buddhist theory. Okay? Practical advice is if something appears in your mind, use this question, what is this? Where does this come from? Only these two. Then you see cause and effect very well. I call this the applied Hwadu. Korean Buddhists, they have this Hwadu Son or Hwadu Suheng that they ask, what is this? Ikemoshinga or Immoko. But this can become very abstract or removed from their own reality. So when you apply it to your karma, whatever appears inside, you ask, what is this? Where does this come from? It gives you perfectly valuable insight. It gives you experience. So if you're interested in your mind, you ask, what is this? Where does this come from? And you keep asking, exploring, until nothing seems to remain. But this nothing is not nothing. Okay? I cannot tell you what this is. If I told you that it's something, I would lie to you. But if I said that it didn't exist, I would also lie to you. And I wouldn't want to do that. So keep asking the question until only the question remains. And then even the question disappears. That's what we are looking for. One technical addition, that if you ask this question, don't keep your energy in the head or around the nose, not even in the heart. Bring your energy down to your tanjon or tantien. Then there will be no clash between the huadu and your karma. Very important. And besides that, keep your breathing always steady and be aware of it. So if you have focus on the tantien, breathing as part of your awareness, then your mind space expands and opens. And in that, you have some playground, you have some breathing space. In that you can reflect. And your question helps reflect to your karma. Okay?
In my country, we have expression or saying that kids and crazy people, they speak the truth. Referring to the fact that probably they don't think when they say something. Is that saying like no mind, having no mind?
Yes. Exactly. You're welcome. More questions?
This class is the first class I take about Buddhism, so I really not well know about Buddhism.
That's wonderful.
So, yeah, I think it's very amazing. I learned a lot. But the reason I came to the temple, I just live my life the way the people around me said you should do what. So I just go to school, I just study, I get married.
Somebody told you to get married?
Korean parents just push your kids to get married at certain times. So yeah, certainly, since I become a parent, it gives me really a big trouble. I see there are so many emotions, whenever I see my kids.
How many children do you have?
2 kids.
2 kids?
Yes.
2 boys or boy and girl?
One boy, one girl.
1 boy, 1 girl.
Yeah. Suddenly, I wonder how Buddhism helped me see this relationship. So before I became a parent, I really never expected, the space as a parent.
Wonderful. You see, human beings, us, we are experts at wanting freedom, happiness, any kind of high quality, and at the same time we put ourselves into an irreversible situation. It's a commitment that you cannot reverse. You can back out, people can divorce, people can leave the family behind. It's not good. Most of the time doesn't solve anything, and it leaves you with this sense of lacking or defeat or some kind of disaster. I mention this not because of you. I mention this for all of us, that commitments are precious. And even though you say that you were pushed into many of your life situations, I think that you really love your children. And they also give you problems. The two together. And that's human. And that's amazing. So, first of all, when you don't have to struggle, with the actual family life, you have time to reflect. When you have to struggle, you have to solve the problem. Then you have similar situation. What is this? Where does this come from? The problem is somebody pooped on the floor. So we have to clean it up. It came from the fact that the child is not yet trained well enough. So we have to train the kid, and then it goes into the night bowl or to the toilet. But when you have time, then reflect on your children really deeply, not particularly from a mother's perspective, just a general human perspective. Who are they? Really? You say, my son, my daughter. No. as human beings, who are they? What kind of karma did they bring? What is your true relationship with them? How can you help them attain the path in their lives? But first, you really have to attain your path, which is already pretty much set, because as a mother of two, you have a program for 20 years. So, really reflect on the karma that brought them to you. This is not an accident. We are born to specific parents and time and place because we continue our karma from before. So they were born to you for many reasons. And the more you find, the better you will be able to educate them and bring them up and later let them go. So the first act after childbirth is my baby. That's the first. But it's also the last. Because after 18, 20, 25 years, you have to let them go. And it can help to a great extent that you reflect on the karma of the children that were born to you. What is it that you can give them or they give you? What is it that you have to take away or you have to give up? This is hard training. Parenting is very hard training. And this relationship with all its emotional, intellectual, physical content is a big educator for everyone involved. So, possession or possessive relationship, if that didn't exist, there would be no motherhood or fatherhood. But ultimately, if the possessive relationship does not stop after some years, then these people have a hard time becoming adults and fulfill their path. Next big issue is inheritance. Not material inheritance, but what do they really inherit from you? And that's why you have to see their hearts, their minds very well. Originally, there's nothing to transmit, but there's everything to give the child to wake up, become a better human being, become aware of himself or herself. But mostly, parents believe that they have to give something as an inheritance from their own personality, that the son would be like the young father and the daughter would be like the young mother. And that's when terrible things can happen, because these karmas, these individuals, they will never be like you. They will not follow your desires. They will not fulfill your dreams. They will fulfill their dreams. They will follow their way. And the sooner we wake up to that, the better we can educate them. What is really parenting? What is really rearing a child? First, you have to perceive them for who they are and why they were born to you. What is their path? What can you really give them? What can you really take from them? What is it that you have to give up? What is it that you have to attain? Plenty of questions to work with. And Son or Zen is really about asking the right question and not giving you preset answers or prefabricated ideologies. That's not Zen, it's some kind of other religion. So congratulations. You are concerned, and that motherly concern makes you a better mother. So please keep going. And don't want to find logical solutions or ultimate peace inside. That's not exactly us. Some moments can be very peaceful. Some moments there's clarity and no opposites. But emotionally, we carry a lot of paradoxes. Intellectually, we carry things that we cannot solve with our logic and live with that. But as time goes on, you can direct your efforts and your family's efforts to the right direction moment to moment without always wanting to be logical or peaceful or solving all the problems.
Thank you for the answer some minutes ago. And I want to ask you about romantic love.
Me?
No.
Okay.
I vow to live as a bodhisattva.
Okay.
And at the same time, I want to have a firm root in this world as a lay Buddhist. And I'm dating a man, at this moment. And I am also listening to my heart, my inner voice, who can be so-called Mr. Right. Do I create that, or do I wait for... because you can bring out the best in people. I believe in that, and I can also bring out the best in me. So when it comes to romantic relationship and marriage, I'm not married yet. What's your advice?
Well, what can I possibly say? So, you're right about bringing something out of the other person, but I would be extremely careful to term it as best or worst. I think the best contribution you can give to somebody's spiritual development, if you bring out who he really is. Not the best, not the worst. These are very elusive concepts. So bring out who he really is. Get into some situations and conditions where his nature can appear, so that you wouldn't only like his merits, you would also like his mistakes. And if that's mutual, then it can be very strong. It's very easy to love somebody when the sun is shining. Get into a crisis. How do you guys solve it together? Get into some serious situation, serious condition. And then the depth of the person, the underlying karma, that also shows. And these are very serious tests for life. Human bondage is very serious. So once you commit and the other person commits, it's better to know who the other person is, and whether you really want to commit or not, and whether it's mutual or not. So romantic love is great, but one more step is necessary. And that one more step is perceiving and understanding the depth of the other character, including your own. And there is a very simple and clear equation. What you do not see in yourself, you will not see in the other person either. What you see in yourself, you will see in the other person too. So that's why perceive yourself very clearly, perceive the world very, very clearly, and that gives you a very good chance that you will perceive your potential partner or future spouse also very clearly. And don't discard your romantic and wonderful, powerful feelings. They have so much energy that we cannot live without them mostly, okay? But don't let these feelings completely fill your mind space. They are part of the story, not the whole story. Because after a while, these engines, which lift the rocket to space, they burn out. So anybody married for a long time, you know that physical attraction doesn't last forever. It's like the first big booster, when the rocket lifts off. It's extremely powerful. But when that's gone, what is it that remains? So what kind of relationship is it after 10, 15, 20 years? Because nobody really wants to get old alone or changing partners when they are 60, 70 years of age. That's very sad and many times difficult. So don't plan ahead. Just see the direction where you and your spouse are headed. And if this direction is at least parallel, it doesn't have to be the same, but it's at least parallel with mutual understanding and mutual care and selfless love involved, then there's a good chance that the commitment can stay on orbit even after the boosters are burnt out. But if that's not happening, it will fall back to earth and burn and crash. That's what we call disappointment. Okay?
I have one follow-up question, because I am a little troubled because of the thinking that he is not on this spiritual path I am on. But I don't mean to force him to change himself, or I don't mean to change him. Then what can be the best way to let him bring out he truly is?
Being on the same spiritual path can result in many things. One is that you will always argue with each other. Who is better Buddhist? Don't do that. But if he is like in a very different religion and starts to be conflicting with yours, that's also not so good. So try to look at him without the religious screen, without the religious filter. How does his heart and mind operate? Does he really need Buddhism? Does he really need the notion of God? Does he need anything to be complete? So sometimes Mukyo is better than any Chongkyo. Look at the person. So this kind of no tradition but true path, that can win. I met many, many supremely conservative, orthodox, narrow-minded people who call themselves very religious. What's the use? What did they do? They just made their wall thicker with the religious views. Okay? And the other is, you can meet many people who do not have a specific religion, but they're extremely open-minded, they're extremely clear, and they're very, very selfless. So, test it. Test the whole situation and bring your potential spouse into those conditions where this mind can manifest. Religion, no religion, doesn't matter. What kind of heart? What kind of mind? What kind of human being? That translates into action, speech, thoughts, and feelings. If they are together, we call that integrity. And the rest follows, okay? You're welcome. Go ahead.
In the Western country, what the style of Buddhism do they practice?
Bosalim, in the West, they like everything like mixed salad. So they practice many kinds of Buddhism together, and sometimes they spoil their stomach. So then we have to help. And that means that we let them relax and forget all this kind of mixture. Everybody has this time of shopping. When they go into the premium outlets and they went all over 3 floors and they get everything they want, but they realize they cannot carry it. Mind is the same. So they want a little bit Tibetan, a little bit Korean, a little bit Chinese, a little bit Japanese, a little Theravada, a little Mahayana, then completely become dysfunctional. So then, clean out necessary. And when they come to us, our Sonbulgyo, we allow them to come and receive them with compassion and say, you came to the right place. So far you could only learn, now you can also forget. And that kind of mental cleaning out is something they do by themselves. Nobody takes any thought away from them. If they still want to keep it, they can. They want to identify with it, they can. But then they suffer. And if they suffer, they will look for some remedy. Then they come to some kind of good meditation practice. It's like children. So let them play, let them eat, let them spoil their stomach. But we also teach them in terms of their openness, what is the good side of loyalty? What is the good side of having one primary tradition? What is the good side of having Buddha, Dharma, Sangha as their refuge? And what is the meaning of refuge? What is correct relationship to a teacher? What it is to have correct Dharma? And what it is to enter the Sangha? And many people don't understand this. In the West, many of them, I don't need a teacher. I already understand. Number 1. Number 2, I will read everything by myself. And Sangha, well, other people, not necessary. Maybe I'll practice alone. So when this approach doesn't work, then something deeper can appear. And we have to accept them with their mistakes. And then we can teach them. Okay? So student is never right or wrong, but teacher may be capable or incapable. In our world, we have body and mind. We have mind and matter. Incarnation on this earth is neither pleasant nor happy. but we can get the best out of it if we strive for something greater than ourselves. Selflessness and selfish, they are not relegated to monk or lay. You can find both in either group of society. Well, I was living at Bongeunsa. We had a bus driver. The bus driver was slightly younger in age than you. His name was Ok Kisanim. And Ok Kisanim had a presence and a smile which kind of got us to wonder, how does this happen? So at some point when I learned enough Korean, I asked, Ok Kisanim, what do you do besides driving the bus and raising your children? He says, well, when the monks do ango, gyolche, I also do it. And I said, how? You have to drive the bus. He says, we have lay sonpangs. We sit 2 hours in the morning before work, and we sit 2 hours in the evening after work, the same samdong gyolche as Sunims. And I said, how many of these have you done? Well, he said, for the last 4 years, summer and winter, 8 times. And that shows his mind space, his clarity, his presence, his anticipation, all the mind qualities that we treasure in a good practitioner. He had that. And he had children and wife and hair and a job. I bowed to him. Because it's all worthy. So true practice does not mean that you have to be just a monk or a nun. You can do this in your own life. You can do this following the commitments that you made. You can integrate that into the workplace where you are, into your relationships. And I certainly hope that all of us will do this. That will inspire more people to practice, attain the great way, and save all beings from suffering. Thank you so much for your attention and your invitation. Thank you.